It's a small family. They're very saddened, obviously, by the event, but they're reasonably religious people, and they've accepted that Cindy is with her dad, Fred, who was an inspiration to her. She was Daddy's little girl, and they're comforted by that. Well, this was, it turns out, a long ago decision that she had made after losing a high school friend to a car accident. So it goes back 20 years. She wanted to be an organ donor should the need arise. There was never any question of that commitment since that time, and she was fortunately able, because her injuries were relatively confined to her brain, to be able to donate a liver, kidneys, tissue, and lungs, sort of interestingly, the latter to National Institutes of Science, I believe, for study. So a fitting place for a lung specialist's lungs to end up, I guess. She was a consummate professional. She was as dedicated as anybody that I've seen in the practice of medicine in the 40 years that I've been practicing. Part of the reason for the fund that we've established in her name was that she used to take money out of her own pocket if people didn't have gas money to get home or were needing a meal on the way home from procedures. Her practice was in the intensive care unit. It was and in what's called interventional bronchoscopy or interventional pulmonology, advanced diagnostic and therapeutic testing for conditions of the lung. She was well respected in her field. She was on the national boards of the organizations that govern her areas of practice. She was published. She was a well-regarded instructor and teacher. I think she was most proud of the fact that she was a mentor to young women coming up in the field, because when she started, there weren't many, and she underwent pressures as might be expected from an all-male field, and she survived them and set up a standard for other young women to follow. Well, I think the best you could probably say is patients came to see the family in the waiting room at Sinai Grace Hospital where she was taken for her care. People that she impacted on all appreciated her diagnostic acumen. They appreciated her compassion. They appreciated her commitment to them as she cared for them through what in pulmonary diseases are not usually good sort of diseases, but she carried them through and was committed to them throughout. The people who we've spoken to comment on her uniqueness. So I think her loss is not just from one of a party of three who do the work that she does, but really she's an enormous gap that has to and cannot be easily filled. From the group of us in pulmonary, I mean, she's been with us for 15 years. She's a friend, a colleague. She's been the mentor to younger staff. She's influential in the direction that her department, division, specialty take. For me, she was like, I was like her Michigan father. It's a terrible loss. I've lost friends 2 or 3 times in my life. This is a bigger loss than anything I or my wife have sustained. We saw Cindy probably every other week socially. We would make her call us when she got home. She did that better than any of our kids ever did growing up. She was just a sweet kid who kept us young, who brightened a room when she was in it. She was just a terrific person in addition to being a great physician. No, and in fact, she learned from her father. Her father was that type of physician. He was a family practice doctor in a small town, Miami. It's spelled Miami, but I guess if you're from Oklahoma, you don't pronounce it that way, or maybe we pronounce it wrong, I'm not sure. But that was where she grew up. He took care of the whole town. He was always stopping. He was always helping. His wife comments the same as Cindy did, money out of pocket if somebody needed it. whatever was needed to be done. So it's really of no surprise to me or any of us really that she would have stopped at an accident. It's just unfortunate that things took the turn that they did.
Doctor?
Well, one, I think, is the importance of being an organ donor. I think that as much as of a loss as she is created for all of us, I think there is an opportunity that her life will be carried on in numerous others, not only through the solid organs that we talked about, but she was a tissue donor as well, so tendons, cornea, small little parts that people don't think of as being important but are essential for the care and healing of a large number of patients are all going to be provided. So I think that's for a giving person, that's about as much as we could hope for, and I think if more people followed that example, I think the crunch of organ need and the lack of organs available for patients who need transplants of any variety might be mitigated to some degree.
How many people will she have helped?
Well, we know a liver, we know 2 kidneys, we know that her lungs are going to be used for science, so eventual help. The tissue is almost impossible to calculate. It's tendons and parts that probably could contribute to operative healing in dozens, if not small numbers, small hundreds of people, depending on how they'd be used.
What will you miss most about her?
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Her spark. She really livened the room. She could cook. She could entertain. She could sing. She could dance. And when she liked you, it was like no one else mattered.